Have you ever looked at a loved one and noticed something different? A subtle change in their voice, the way they move, or maybe it's in their eyes. There's a quiet distance, a look of tiredness that wasn't there before. Maybe it starts with them skipping a few meals here and there, or getting winded after doing what used to be a simple task. At first, it's easy to brush these things off as just part of aging, something inevitable we all face. But what if these small changes are actually clues? Clues about something more significant, about a loved one preparing for their final journey. We often assume that death comes suddenly, as if one day it just happens. But the truth is, the body speaks to us long before the end. It whispers warning signs, sometimes months, sometimes even a full year ahead of time. These signs are quiet, easy to overlook, and by the time we notice them, it may feel like it's already too late to truly prepare or make those final moments count. But what if you could catch those signs early? What if you could recognize them when they first appear and use that knowledge to not just take better care of your loved one, but also cherish every precious moment together? Imagine knowing that the end is near and using that time to make memories that will last long after they're gone. I want to take you on a journey today, a journey of understanding, of recognizing the subtle signals your loved one may be sending, and learning how you can help them through their final months with dignity, peace, and comfort. Because the truth is, the most important thing you can offer them is your presence, your love, your support. So let's start this journey together by looking at the first sign that often appears long before the end, the quiet warning that can help you prepare, emotionally and practically, for what's ahead. Stay with me. Imagine a moment when you notice something that's been slowly creeping up, something small at first, but when you really look, you begin to realize it's not so small anymore. Maybe it's the belt that used to fit just right, but now feels a little looser. Or perhaps it's the clothes that no longer hug the body the way they once did. At first, you tell yourself it's nothing to worry about. It's just aging, you think. Maybe they're just eating a little less these days. But deep down, something nags at you, and slowly the truth starts to settle in. This is often the first sign that our loved one is telling us that their body is changing in ways we might not understand right away. Significant weight loss, especially when it's unintentional, can be one of the clearest warnings that something is wrong. The body over time becomes less efficient at absorbing nutrients, and muscle mass begins to decrease. Now, we all lose some muscle as we age, but when that loss happens too quickly, it's a signal, a red flag really, that something deeper is happening. It's no longer just a matter of slowing down or getting older. It's the body struggling to keep up, trying to adapt to a new rhythm that it can no longer maintain. Take, for instance, a dear friend of mine. Let's call her Mary. Mary had always been active, a person who enjoyed her daily walks, gardening, and chatting with friends over coffee. But one day I noticed she was eating less. Her appetite seemed to be fading, and she was dropping weight without even trying. At first, she brushed it off. "I'm just not as hungry as I used to be," she would say, with a smile that tried to mask her concern. It wasn't until her clothes started hanging loosely on her frame that I realized something wasn't right. Despite all her efforts to eat, to supplement meals with protein drinks, the weight kept slipping away. And the more she lost, the more fragile she became, both physically and emotionally. We eventually discovered that Mary's body was no longer absorbing the nutrients it needed. Muscle wasting was setting in, leaving her weaker than she had ever been. This wasn't just about losing weight, it was about her body preparing to slow down, to shut down. What I learned through Mary's journey, and what I want you to take away from this, is that weight loss is not just a superficial change, it's a signal. It's your body's way of telling you that something important is happening beneath the surface. If you notice significant weight loss in a loved one, don't brush it off. Don't assume it's just a part of getting older. It's a sign that the body's struggling, and it may be time to adjust the way you care for them. But here's the important part. The lesson we can all learn from Mary's story: it's not about forcing them to eat more, to try and reverse the weight loss. Instead, it's about comfort. It's about offering them small, easy-to-eat foods that they can enjoy without pressure. It's about hydration and creating an environment where they can still feel cared for, even when their body isn't cooperating the way it used to. So as we move forward, remember this. Significant weight loss may seem like a small change at first, but it's a critical warning. And when you recognize it, you're already one step ahead in being able to offer your loved one the comfort, dignity, and care they deserve in their final years. Now let's move on to another sign that often goes hand in hand with weight loss: extreme fatigue and weakness. It's not just feeling tired, it's something deeper, something that asks for our understanding and patience. Have you ever watched someone you love, someone who used to be so full of life, suddenly seem to lose their spark? At first, it's easy to dismiss. Perhaps they're just tired, or they're not getting enough sleep. But as time goes on, you start to see it more clearly. It's not just a little tiredness. It's something deeper, something that doesn't go away with rest. It's extreme fatigue and weakness, a quiet warning from the body that it is no longer able to sustain itself the way it once could. We all know that life takes its toll as we age, and feeling tired after a long day is something everyone experiences. But when it's not just the end of the day, when it becomes a constant battle to get out of bed, when a simple walk across the room feels like climbing a mountain, that's when we need to listen more closely. This deep exhaustion is often a sign that the body is conserving its remaining energy. As we age, our organs slow down. The heart doesn't pump quite as efficiently, circulation becomes weaker, and muscles start to lose their strength. The body's systems begin to prioritize what's most essential, leaving little energy for the tasks that once felt easy. I remember a moment with my grandmother. Her name was Evelyn. She had always been so independent, always eager to take care of things herself. But over time, I started noticing how much more effort it took for her to get out of her chair, how she began to need longer naps in the afternoon. She didn't have the strength to do the little things she once enjoyed, like making her famous apple pie or walking down the street to the park. I could see the frustration in her eyes when she couldn't do what she used to do. She was no longer the energetic woman I had grown up with. At first, I thought she just needed to push through, that if she just kept moving, she'd get her energy back. But that's when I realized this wasn't something that could be fixed by pushing harder. Evelyn's body was slowing down, and it was asking for rest, for time to heal, for space to be supported in a way it hadn't been before. That's when I learned the key lesson from Evelyn's journey. You can't force someone to fight against the natural rhythm of their body. Sometimes the greatest act of love is simply letting them rest when they need it, offering a helping hand without judgment. It's about understanding that this exhaustion isn't laziness. It's a sign of the body's quiet, inevitable decline. So what can you do if you notice extreme fatigue and weakness in someone you love? The first step is to listen, really listen to what their body is saying. You don't need to encourage them to push through. Instead, offer comfort. Help them rest when they need to. Create an environment where they don't feel pressured to perform at the same level they once did. Sometimes the best thing you can offer is your presence. Sitting beside them, offering a gentle conversation, or just being there while they take a nap. And remember, it's not just about what they can do, it's about what they feel, about making them comfortable and giving them space to rest without shame. If we try to push too hard, we may miss the chance to make their last months, weeks, or days truly meaningful. As we look ahead, let's keep this in mind. Extreme fatigue isn't something to be ignored. It's an important part of the journey, one that requires us to be gentle, understanding, and patient. Next, we'll explore another important sign: the subtle changes in cognition and behavior that may occur as the body prepares for its final stages. Understanding these changes can make all the difference in how we care for our loved ones. As we age, our minds, like our bodies, begin to slow down. The sharpness of thought, the clarity of memory, and the quickness of wit. These are things we may take for granted in the years when we feel vibrant and full of life. But over time, we might notice the subtle changes that come with aging, especially in the way our loved ones think and behave. Imagine this. You sit down for a conversation with someone you've known all your life. Perhaps it's your father, who used to tell the most fascinating stories about his youth. He always had an answer to every question, a solution to every problem. But lately, something has shifted. He repeats himself more often, or maybe he forgets where he put his glasses for the fifth time that day. He seems disoriented in places that once felt familiar to him. At first, you may think it's just stress or maybe too much on his mind, But deep down, you begin to realize that these small signs are something more. They are part of the gradual shift that happens when the mind starts to lose its ability to process information the way it once did. Cognitive decline is a delicate thing. It doesn't happen overnight, but rather it creeps in quietly, like the changing of seasons. It can start with little things, forgetting names, losing track of time, or getting confused in a familiar place. These are moments that, at first, seem insignificant, but they are often the first signs that the brain is struggling to keep up with the demands of daily life. I remember my Aunt Clara, who was always sharp as a tack. She could recall every family history, every birthday, every detail from the past. But over time, I noticed that our visits started to feel different. Clara would forget names, misplace things, and even have difficulty following along with conversations. One afternoon, she asked me the same question 3 times in a row, each time not remembering the previous answer. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she's tired, I thought. But as it continued, I could see that this wasn't just a momentary lapse. Something was changing. What I didn't understand right away was that this wasn't just forgetfulness. This was a sign that her brain was slowing down, and her ability to process and retain information was becoming more challenging. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Clara wasn't just losing her memory. She was also withdrawing emotionally. She no longer had the energy to engage in the long conversations we used to have. She was quiet, almost distant at times. And that distance, that lack of emotional engagement, was just as much a part of her cognitive decline as the forgetfulness was. The lesson I learned from Clara's experience is this. Cognitive decline doesn't just take away memories. It changes the way we connect with the world. It changes how a person feels, how they express themselves, and how they interact with others. And as loved ones, we need to recognize this shift not with frustration or impatience, but with understanding and compassion. So when you see these changes in a loved one, don't try to push them to snap out of it or remember. Instead, focus on meeting them where they are. Speak gently. Offer reassurance, even if they don't seem to understand. And most importantly, don't take it personally. Their ability to connect might be fading, but they can still feel your presence, your love, and your care. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply be there, without expectations, letting them feel safe and comfortable in their own skin. Cognitive decline can be heartbreaking, but it's a part of the journey for many people. It teaches us the importance of patience and compassion, two things that will make their final months, weeks, or days more peaceful. As we move on to the next sign, let's carry that understanding with us. Next, we'll look at frequent infections and the way a weakened immune system can signal the body's decline. These two are signs that need our attention and care. As we grow older, it's natural for our bodies to change, to slow down, to not be as resilient as they once were. And one of the most noticeable ways this happens is in the way our immune systems begin to lose their strength. It's like the body's defenses, which once stood strong and vigilant, start to wear down, leaving us more vulnerable to infections and taking longer to heal. For many elderly people, this weakening immune system is not just an inconvenience, it's a sign of the body's gradual decline. Think about a time when you had a small scratch or a bruise. When we're younger, these things often heal in a matter of days. But for an elderly loved one, even a minor wound can turn into something much more serious. The skin becomes thinner, circulation weakens, and healing slows down. A simple cut on the finger can become an infection that lingers far longer than expected. And the worst part? Sometimes the infection doesn't even show itself as we'd expect. No fever, no chills, just a general feeling of weakness, fatigue, and confusion. Sometimes the first warning sign that something isn't right. I remember my Uncle George, a man who never let a cold slow him down. He was tough, never missed a day of work, always took care of everything around the house. But one winter, he developed a small rash on his leg. At first, it didn't seem like much, just a little irritation, nothing serious. But over the next few days, the rash began to get worse, spreading and becoming painful. He didn't think much of it, hoping it would just go away on its own, as it always had in the past. But this time, it didn't go away. The infection spread, and soon he was feeling worse, exhausted all the time, running a low-grade fever. We rushed him to the doctor, and it turned out that his immune system just wasn't fighting the way it used to. A simple infection had become a major issue, and it took weeks of antibiotics to get him back on track. What I learned from George's experience was this. As we age, the body's ability to heal and protect itself starts to fade. Small infections that once would have been nothing more than an inconvenience become serious risks. And more than that, our loved ones may not even show the typical signs of illness. Instead of running a fever, they might seem more tired or lose their appetite. Instead of complaining about pain, they might simply withdraw into themselves. These are the quiet signs that the immune system is no longer able to keep up, and it's up to us to pay attention to them. So what can we do when we see these changes? The first thing is to be vigilant. If you notice that your loved one is catching infections more often, whether it's a cold, a urinary tract infection, or even a simple wound that won't heal, it's time to take it seriously. Don't wait for it to get worse. Seek medical attention sooner rather than later and make sure they are getting the care they need. But the lesson here is not just about medical treatment, it's about understanding. The immune system's decline doesn't just affect the body, it affects the person as a whole. When we see a loved one struggling with frequent infections, we must be gentle with them. They may not have the energy to fight like they once did. They might feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or confused. It's up to us to step in and offer the support they need to get through it, whether that's by helping them get the medical care they need, keeping them comfortable, or simply offering them reassurance. As we move forward, let's keep this in mind. When infections become more frequent or wounds heal more slowly, it's not just a sign of aging, it's a sign that the body's defenses are weakening. But by paying attention to these changes and responding with care, we can help our loved ones through this stage of life with grace and dignity. Next, let's look at another important sign of the body's decline, the changes in breathing and circulation. These shifts, though subtle at first, can tell us so much about how the body's preparing for its final stage. There's a quiet stillness that begins to settle in when the body is preparing for its final stage. It's as if the rhythm of life itself begins to slow down. And one of the most significant signs of this change is in the way we breathe and how blood flows through our bodies. It's subtle at first, shallow breaths, the slow rise and fall of the chest. Then as time passes, it becomes more apparent. The breath is no longer steady, the pulse weaker, the hands and feet colder. This shift, while often quiet and gradual, is a clear sign that the body is beginning to conserve its energy, focusing on vital organs while letting go of the less essential functions. I remember sitting by my grandfather's side during his final months. He had always been a strong man, never one to complain, but as his body began to weaken, I started noticing something. His breath became irregular. At times, it would speed up, almost as if he was struggling to catch his breath. Other times, it would slow down so much that I'd find myself holding my breath too, waiting to see if he was still breathing. There would be moments of calm, followed by a sudden deep gasp, as if his body was trying to fill itself up with energy that it no longer had. And then there were his hands. Once warm and firm, they started to feel cold, a bluish tint spreading across his skin, especially in the tips of his fingers and toes. I was frightened, unsure of what this meant. Was something wrong? Was it urgent? The doctor explained that this was a natural part of the body's process as it began to slow down. Circulation, like everything else, was winding down. The heart was no longer pumping as strongly as before, and the body was prioritizing blood flow to the vital organs, reducing circulation to the extremities. It was the body's way of saying, it's time to rest. What I learned from my grandfather's journey, and what I want to share with you today, is this. When breathing changes, when the body feels cold and the pulse weakens, it's not something to fear. It's a sign of the body's natural process. The body is preparing for its final moments, and in that, there's a certain peace. It's not something we can control or fix, but rather something we need to accept with grace and understanding. The best thing we can do is offer comfort, helping them breathe easier, keeping them warm, and making sure they feel safe. The lesson here is simple, yet powerful. When we notice changes in the breath or circulation, we're witnessing the body's quiet surrender. It's a reminder that our loved ones are not just physical beings, but also spiritual ones, needing our presence and care more than ever. We can't reverse these changes, but we can ease the transition by creating a calm, peaceful environment, one where they feel surrounded by love and warmth, even as the body starts to let go. So when you see these signs, irregular breathing, cold hands, and slow circulation, don't panic. Instead, remember that it's a part of the journey, a sign that the body is winding down in its own natural way. In these moments, your love and presence are the greatest comforts you can offer. As we reflect on this, we'll move to our next and final point: how understanding these changes allows us to make the most of the time we have left. Let's talk about how recognizing these signs early can empower us to make decisions that ensure our loved ones' final moments are filled with dignity, peace, and love. At the end of life, we are often faced with a difficult truth. There is so much about our loved one's journey we cannot change. The body will continue to slow, the mind may fade, and the energy that once powered their every step will eventually diminish. But even in these final stages, there is so much we can do, not to fix but to comfort, not to change but to ensure that the time we have left together is filled with love, dignity, and peace. Caring for someone in their final stages isn't about rushing to solve problems or fix what can't be fixed. It's about understanding the natural process of aging and decline and offering what truly matters: presence, patience, and compassion. It's about making the environment as peaceful and comfortable as possible, offering a hand when needed, and creating moments of serenity amidst the uncertainty. Let me share a story that deeply impacted me. My mother, who had always been so full of life, full of stories and laughter, reached a point where her health began to decline rapidly. The weight loss, the exhaustion, and the confusion all set in. But it was in her final months, when she could no longer walk without assistance, when speaking was a challenge, that I truly understood what it meant to care for someone in their final stage of life. It wasn't about pushing her to be better or trying to get her to do things she once loved. It was about offering her a place where she could rest, knowing she was loved, a place where her dignity remained intact, where she could still feel seen, heard, and valued. There were days when she would sit quietly, unable to speak much, but I would sit next to her, holding her hand, offering her soft words of reassurance, and sometimes just sitting there in silence, knowing that we were together, was enough. It was a powerful reminder that sometimes comfort doesn't come from doing something. It comes from simply being. The lesson here is profound, and it's something I hold close to my heart. In the final stages of life, the most important thing we can offer is not more action, but more presence. It's about meeting them where they are, without judgment, without rushing. It's about allowing them to feel safe, loved, and respected, even as they let go of so much. Sometimes it's the simplest acts: holding their hand, offering a gentle touch, or simply sitting in quiet companionship, that bring the most peace. One of the most important aspects of providing comfort is creating an environment that feels familiar and calm. Soft lighting, comfortable bedding, quiet music, and favorite scents. These small things can make a world of difference. And when it comes to speaking with them, be gentle. Don't try to force a conversation if they're not up to it. Instead, speak slowly, softly, and lovingly. Even if they cannot respond, they can still hear you. And in those moments, your words can be a great source of comfort. And remember, it's not about pushing them to keep fighting. It's about knowing when to stop, when to focus on the comfort of their body and soul, and when to simply let go of the need to fix things. As we conclude today's journey, think about this. We are all in this together. Caring for a loved one in their final stages is one of the greatest acts of love we can offer, but it requires patience and understanding. It requires us to be present, to create a space where they can feel safe and loved until the very end. When we let go of the need to control the situation, we can offer them what they truly need in their last moments: peace, dignity, and love. As we've explored today, the journey of caring for a loved one in their final stages is one of the most profound and emotional experiences we can face. Through the signs we've discussed: significant weight loss, extreme fatigue, cognitive decline, frequent infections, changes in breathing and circulation, we begin to understand that the body doesn't just stop suddenly. Instead, it gradually sends us messages, quiet warnings that, if we pay attention, can help us prepare, both emotionally and practically. These signs may seem small at first, an extra nap here, a forgotten name there. But when we listen, when we recognize them for what they are, we gain the opportunity to offer better care, to cherish each moment we have left, and to ensure that our loved ones' final stages are filled with comfort, dignity, and love. The greatest lesson we can take from this is simple. It's not about fixing the inevitable, but about making the final journey as peaceful and meaningful as possible. This means offering more presence, more patience, and more love. It's about creating a space where they feel safe and cherished, even when they can no longer care for themselves in the way they once did. Sometimes it's the quiet moments of sitting together, of offering a gentle touch or a few comforting words that mean the most. As we move through life, these moments are often fleeting, and the end can feel overwhelming. But remember, by recognizing these signs early, you can be the source of strength and comfort for your loved ones, helping them transition with grace and dignity. I hope that the insights we've shared today will help you navigate these difficult times with compassion and clarity. If you're seeing these signs in someone you care about, know that you're not alone in this journey. Many families have walked this path, and though it's never easy, we can all find strength in knowing that we gave our loved ones the best care, love, and support we could offer in their final moments. Thank you for joining me today. Please take a moment to reflect on what you've learned. And if you found this video helpful, I encourage you to share it with others who may benefit from this information. Remember, by supporting each other and being there for our loved ones, we can make their final stages of life filled with the peace and comfort they deserve. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.